Welcome to Viral Vault, your eerie gateway to the most bone-chilling corners of cinema. Today, we're descending into a subgenre that doesn't rely on cheap jump scares, but taps into ancient myths, rural isolation, and pagan terrors that burrow into your soul. This is folk horror at its most terrifying. And no, we're not talking about Midsummer or The Witch. These are the underrated, under-the-radar nightmares that you probably missed, but will haunt you long after the credits roll. So grab your talismans, light a protective candle, and let's dive into the top 5 folk horror films you definitely missed. Don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell icon, and comment your creepiest folk horror discovery. 1. Hellbender, 2021. Deep within the remote woods of upstate New York, a teenage girl named Izzy lives an isolated life with her mother. Their home is secluded, their diet strictly foraged, and Izzy is homeschooled, all under the pretense that she has a rare autoimmune disease. But as time passes, it becomes clear, this isn't protection, it's containment. Izzy's mother is hiding a terrible secret. Their bloodline is cursed, or blessed, with ancient, supernatural power. They are hellbenders, a type of witch tied deeply to nature, ritual, and a primal force passed through blood. For generations, this matriarchal lineage has hidden in the woods, suppressing their instincts, fearing what might happen if their power is fully awakened. When Izzy meets a local girl during a secret trip into town, her world begins to open up. Social life, friendship, rebellion, and something far darker. As her emotions grow stronger, so does the strange energy within her. Nightmares plague her, symbols begin to appear. Her hunger, both literal and spiritual, intensifies. The transformation has begun. Shot with eerie intimacy by real-life mother-daughter filmmakers Toby Poser and Zelda Adams, who also play the main characters, Hellbender is a stunning blend of indie creativity and folk horror aesthetics. With its psychedelic editing, haunting sound design, and raw emotional performances, the film explores themes of adolescence, female power, and the terrifying beauty of nature. This is not your typical witch movie. There are no pointy hats, no flying broomsticks. Instead, Hellbender offers a modern myth wrapped in ancient roots. It asks, what happens when we stop fearing our darkness and embrace it? If you missed this unique and terrifying gem, now is the time to descend into the woods and awaken the blood. 2. You Are Not My Mother, 2021. Set in a bleak Dublin suburb, You Are Not My Mother follows Char, a quiet teenage girl living with her mentally ill mother, Angela, and her overbearing grandmother. But things take a sinister turn when Angela vanishes without a trace, only to return shortly after. Seemingly changed, gone is the frail, depressive woman Char once knew. In her place is someone, or something, acting erratic, unsettlingly cheerful, and increasingly volatile. Her eyes burn with something unnatural, and her behavior swings wildly between loving and terrifying. As Char tries to make sense of her mother's transformation, she begins to uncover a chilling truth rooted deep in Irish folklore. The film draws heavily from the legend of changelings, fairy creatures that steal human babies and replace them with imposters. Char starts to suspect that the woman living in her house may no longer be her mother, but a dark presence wearing her face. You Are Not My Mother masterfully blends psychological horror with folk myth. Its slow-burning tension and eerie atmosphere create a constant sense of dread. The mundane setting of housing estates and overcast skies only makes the supernatural horror feel more grounded, more real. This is not a story of jump scares, but of creeping paranoia, family trauma, and ancestral secrets. It explores the terror of not recognizing the people you love, and the even deeper horror of realizing they may never have been who you thought they were. Quiet, haunting, and emotionally raw, this film is a standout in modern folk horror, proving that sometimes The scariest monsters are the ones we once called Mother. 3. Husera, the Bone Woman, 2022. Valeria has finally achieved what she and her partner have long wished for. She's pregnant. But instead of joy, the pregnancy fills her with dread, confusion, and an eerie sense that something ancient is watching her. As the weeks pass, Valeria begins to experience terrifying visions and physical disturbances, the cracking of unseen bones, shadowy figures crawling on the ceiling, and unsettling nightmares that blur with reality. Her body doesn't feel like her own. Her instincts don't align with what society tells her motherhood should be. And worse, she feels utterly alone. But this is more than just psychological horror. As Valeria reconnects with her estranged aunt in her old life in the occult, she uncovers the truth. She is being haunted, not by a ghost, but by a curse, a spirit tied to women, bones, and broken expectations, something that devours mothers who deny their true selves. Husera is deeply rooted in Mexican folklore and feminist themes. It explores the terror that can come not from evil spirits, but from societal pressure to conform, to sacrifice, to mother. It dares to ask, what happens when a woman's desire for freedom clashes with what the world expects from her? With its disturbing body horror, symbolic bone-cracking sequences, and an ever-mounting atmosphere of despair, Husera taps into primal fear. If you thought pregnancy was only a blessing, Husera will haunt. 4. A Dark Song, 2016. A Dark Song isn't your typical horror film filled with jump scares and gore. Instead, it's an intense, slow-burning descent into grief, obsession, and the spiritual unknown, set almost entirely within a secluded countryside house in Wales. The story follows Sophia, a grieving mother devastated by the loss of her young son. Consumed by sorrow and guilt, she turns to the occult, not out of curiosity, but out of desperation. She hires Joseph Solomon, a reclusive and abrasive occultist, to guide her through a months-long, grueling ritual known as the Abramelin, an ancient, real-life magical process designed to summon a guardian angel. But this is not a process to be taken lightly. It demands isolation, fasting, sacrifice, and absolute honesty. And as the ritual deepens, what begins as a spiritual quest slowly unravels into a nightmarish psychological thriller. Is Sophia truly prepared to face divine forces, or darker, more malevolent entities being drawn in by her unra? The film strips away the typical tropes of horror and instead creates dread through realism, emotion, and silence. Every candlelit corridor, every strange noise, every moment of doubt feels soaked in spiritual consequence. It's a film that challenges both the characters and the viewer to consider the cost of seeking. A Dark Song is a masterclass in atmosphere and emotional depth. It's not about scares, it's about confronting your pain and the unknown with terrifying sincerity. For those looking for horror that lingers not in your mind, but in your soul, T. 5. 8 for Silver, 2021, aka The Cursed. In the fog-drenched landscapes of 19th-century rural France, 8 for Silver, also known as The Cursed, spins a chilling reimagining of the werewolf myth with a folk horror twist. This film isn't your typical creature feature. It's a slow-burn tale wrapped in gothic dread, ancient curses, and colonial guilt. The story centers around pathologist John McBride, who arrives in a remote village haunted by strange murders and disappearances. As he investigates, he uncovers a horrifying truth. The townspeople are plagued by a supernatural curse that stems from a brutal massacre of a Romani clan years prior. Their vengeance lingers in the soil, in the shadows, and in the twisted transformation of humans into beasts. What sets this film apart is its atmosphere, bleak, misty, and soaked in despair. The creature design is grotesque and disturbing, leaning more toward a folkloric nightmare than a traditional werewolf. There's a deep undercurrent of guilt and generational trauma, echoing through the land and infecting the people. 8 for Silver combines the visual beauty of period dramas with the creeping unease of folk horror. It taps into fears of inherited sins, unrelenting punishment, and forces that cannot be buried. The horror isn't just in the fangs and blood, it's in the idea that history, when soaked in injustice, never dies. If you think you've seen every werewolf movie, think again. The cursed will gnaw at your nerves and stay under your skin long after the final frame. A haunting gem that horror lovers definitely shouldn't miss. These films prove that true terror doesn't need big budgets or loud screams, just ancient fears, whispered tales, and a slow descent into madness. Which one will you dare to watch tonight? Let us know in the comments. Hit like if your heart is still beating. And subscribe to ViralVault, where the darkness never sleeps. New Moon.